again. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Good afternoon. How is everybody doing? It's great to be here once again, getting together virtually to study the weekly Parsha. After a little hiatus from the routine with Pesach, with the preparation for Shavuot, and today we are going back to study a little bit of the weekly Parsha. It's Parsha Shemini. Finally, hello, Jerome. Hi, welcome. If you are, whoever is there, I don't know, because I don't see names, I see numbers. Rocky Pollack is here. He says, Hineni. Very good. Hineni. Like the big heroes from the Bible, when God called them, they said, Hineni, here I am. Good to see. So, Judy Sharak is here. Good afternoon to you too. It's great. It's great. As I said, all what I can see are numbers. But if you type something on the chat, I can put a face and a name, at least a name, to the number. And it's always better. It's always better. You know, numbers are, it's a funny thing, numbers. In Judaism, we believe in the every person has a name. And that message is even more important in a day like today, that is Yom HaShoah, is the day that we remember the victims of the Holocaust. And it's interesting because the event that is put together by B'nai B'rith is called To Every Person There Is a Name. So it's good to get used to, at least for me to imagine, that I have people in front of me. It's not just a number that my computer shows me. That doesn't mean anything. Dr. David Pollack is here. Welcome. Welcome. Yeah, numbers, statistics. Yeah, statistics also are a funny thing. According to statistics, you know, if you have 2 cars and I have none, according to the statistics, each one of us has a car, which is not true. That's funny things about numbers. But people are precious. Everybody's special. Everybody's different. And everybody's necessary. Everybody has a goal to fulfill in this earth. So, as I mentioned before, today is Yom HaShoah, which is interesting because we have the event, the big event for Yom HaShoah tonight. I don't know if it's in your calendar. If it's not, just put it right now. We're going to do a virtual gathering for tonight. We're going to read the Megillat HaShoah, which is a scroll that it was written in the same spirit, for example, of Megillat Echa, the book of lamentation that we read for Tisha B'Av, for a fast day when we remember the destruction of the temples, right? And so there is this new composition that is called Megillat HaShoah that tries to capture the essence of the Holocaust, of the Shoah. And it's a beautiful and moving text that we are going to read tonight virtually. We have different readers from all over the city that they are going to be reading different parts of this scroll. The scroll that we have at the Shaarei Tzedek is written in the same parchment we use for the Torah, but it's and there are other places that they have it as well. But the difference, which is unique, the one we have at Shaarei Tzedek, when we commission a scribe, which by the way was the one and only Irma Penn. I don't know if you had the pleasure to meet her. Unfortunately, she passed away. She was a great Soferet, which is a Jewish scribe who was trained in the art of writing a Sefer Torah or a Megillah. So we commissioned it to her, and we asked her if she could do side by side Hebrew and English. So that's the way it was written. For my family, it's actually also very special because it was dedicated to the blessed memory of Ronald Myers, my father-in-law, my wife's father. And so yeah, it's very special. It's a beautiful piece of art, and because it's in Hebrew and in English, we have a very interesting interfaith lineup of people who are going to read different paragraphs of the Megillat HaShoah, including people who are going to chant it in Hebrew, some parts, with using the same melody that we use for Megillat Echa, for the Book of Lamentations. So when is this? Is tonight at 7 p.m. And what I wanted to say that it was very special is one of the parts is the El Maleh Rachamim, the memorial prayer. But because it's a my father-in-law, he wasn't a rabbi. It was dedicated to him when we commissioned it. Sorry if it was a misconception. So for the El Maleh Rachamim, that I usually do it from the Bima of Shaare Zedek, because I had a funeral today, it occurred to me that perhaps what I could do is to pre-record it from the Shaare Zedek cemetery, which I did, from the monument that it was dedicated by the Monash Legion. So I sang it from there and I recited Kaddish. Today, that is Yom HaShoah, and that footage is going to be played also tonight for the Megillat HaShoah. He was a wise judge. Thank you, Judge Pollack. Thank you so much. So what is Yom HaShoah? Let's start with that, and then we can continue studying a little bit of the Parsha. Let me bring it here. Yom HaShoah, which is the day that we are observing today, the real name is actually Yom HaZikaron LaShoah VeLaGevurah. Long name. Perhaps we can understand why we call it Yom HaShoah. It's easier to remember, easier for everybody to say. And Yom HaZikaron LaShoah VeLaGevurah translates as Holocaust and Heroism Remembrance Day. Okay? Known colloquially in Israel and abroad as Yom HaShoah, and in English as Holocaust Remembrance Day or Holocaust Day, is observed as Israel's day of commemoration. And this is very important to remember, that technically Yom HaShoah is something that it was created for Israel. It was decided by the parliament, by the Knesset. So this started as something that was exclusively for Israel. And it was eventually adopted by many congregations in the diaspora outside Israel. Okay? But always remember, this is originally something for Israel only. So it's a commemoration of the approximately 6 million Jews who perished in the Holocaust as a result of the actions carried out by Nazi Germany and its accessories, and for the Jewish resistance in that period. So this is also very important, because in Yom HaShoah we remember 2 days. The title says it. We remember the dead and we remember the heroes. And heroes with a capital H. It's not only the ones who grab a gun or a rifle and went to war against the Nazis. There were heroes everywhere. Heroes as parents protecting the child, or regular people who risk their lives to steal food so they can help the other people. So many different kind of heroisms that we talk about it and we remember year after year for Yom HaShoah. So again, Yom HaShoah serves for 2 different things. We remember the dead, we remember acts of heroism during the Shoah. Okay? In Israel, it is a national memorial day. It was inaugurated in 1953, anchored by a law signed by the Prime Minister of Israel, David Ben-Gurion, and the President of Israel, Yitzhak Ben-Zvi. It is held on the 27th day of Nisan, which depends on the year, could be in April or May, unless the 27th will be adjacent to Shabbat, in which case the date is shifted by a day. Yeah, we don't want to have anything either the day before Shabbat or the day after Shabbat. And let me explain why. Because if you have something right before Shabbat, then there is no way to prepare for Shabbat. Right? And if you do it right after Shabbat, then there is no way to prepare the event during Shabbat because of all the restrictions. So to avoid any kind of problems like that, they decided to do it either the day one day before or one day after. We leave 1 day as a buffer, either before Shabbat or after Shabbat. Okay? So let's see some of the things that people wrote here in the chat before we go to the Parsha. Shelly, thank you. You like the idea. David Pollack, a siren goes off in the street of Israel and they have a few minutes of remembrance. Yes, that's correct. and everybody stops their car, highway, streets, alleys, doesn't matter. Everybody stops, get off the car, and they stand beside their cars in silence. It's absolutely amazing in Israel. Yeah, it is. Everything stops. That's correct. And even the content on TV and radios changes for the day to honor the day of Yom HaShoah. Okay. And again, it's going to be at 7 p.m. What we are going to do together tonight, and this is a collaboration with I don't want to say the wrong name of our partners, so let me read it here for a minute. I want to why I have this, hold on a minute, give me a second, guys. With Jewish Heritage Center, that's our partner this year, and we are going to be doing it tonight. Okay, it will be streamed on the same channels you are using now for this class, either YouTube or Facebook. We are going to have the chat as well, so we can interact with you guys. The only difference is we are going to have a dedicated moderator for the chat tonight. Yeah, you know how usually these events about the Holocaust go, right? Unfortunately. Okay, let's study about the Parsha Shemini. And this is very interesting. This is about the inauguration of the temple, the tabernacle, which is like a temple, but it was a portable temple that it was built in the desert. Eventually, when the people of Israel made it to the land of Israel, after a few years, they finally had their temple. But before that, everything was about the tabernacle. And Shelley said, no, we have, you know what? The problem is sometimes, Shelley, that we have people that's called trolls. If you don't know what a troll is on the internet, Google it, okay? They're troublemakers. Yeah, of course, they're anonymous. They create these fake names and they just post either hate things and like, yeah. Okay, so back to the Parsha. We are talking about the inauguration of the tabernacle. But the interesting thing about the way it's described in the Parsha is, we have a series of actions that happened before the inauguration. So there was one day something happened, then the day after, the day after, the day after. And the Torah is mentioning what happened every day. So say, day 1, this happened. Day 2, this happened. Day 3, this other thing happened, right? And eventually this Parsha will say, Vayehi bayom Hashemini. On the 8th day. What happened? Well, it says here, on the 8th day, Moses called Aaron, his brother, his sons, and the leaders of Israel, because it was about to be inaugurated. Now, the funny thing here, and here is where the Midrash comes into play, that if you know the names of the days of the week in Hebrew, there is no such thing of 8th day. It was 1 to 6, then Shabbat, then back to 1. Right? So, of course, here when it says Bayom HaShemini, it means the day after the 7th day. We have it clear. That's if you have a literal reading of the text. But if you want to go beyond that, if you want to take a more allegorical approach to this text, and that's what many rabbis do, they understand this Yom HaShemini as a day that actually doesn't exist. The days goes from 1 to 7. That's it. That's the complete cycle. So the rabbis ask, what is this 8th day as a concept, as a principle? Okay? Because they will say that there is not a coincidence that the tabernacle was inaugurated on the 8th day of a cycle. Okay? Very important thing to have into consideration. And the thing is, in Judaism, numbers are very important. In fact, there is one way to study the Torah that is using what sometimes we call numerology. It's called gematria, where we analyze every word based on their numerical value. Every letter of the Hebrew alphabet is also a number. So, just a quick example. The alphabet is Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, so forth. Aleph, first letter, numerical value 1. Bet, second letter, numerical value 2. Gimel, third letter, numerical value of 3. So that will continue until Tet, which is number 9. Then the next one is Yud, is going to be 10. But then the next letter is not 11, it's 20, and then 30, and then 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, and then 200, 300, and 400, which is the Taf, is the last one. So the Hebrew alphabet goes from 1 to 400. And that is very important to know because, as I mentioned, some people like to study the Torah by analyzing the numerical value of every word. Why is that so important? Because they will say if there are two different words that they seems to be disconnected or nothing to do with each other because the meaning is totally different, but the numerical value is the same, then those words are connected. It's almost like analyzing an object from their atomic composition, right? And you could have things that they seems to be unrelated or different, but if you analyze their atomic number, they are related. Let me give you an example. For example, if you can have water and ice, they seems to be different unless you really know what there is, right? One is liquid, the other one is solid, or sometimes you have steam, which is a gas, but it's H2O. The three, doesn't matter the shape or the state which they are, the composition, their essence is H2O, right? So they are related, they are connected, they are the same thing. So sometimes the rabbis understand that this is the same what happened with the Hebrew words, that sometimes they seem to be different, but if the numerical value is the same, their core, their essence is the same, and we have to find ways to connect the two or the three of different words that they have the same numerical value. I don't want to go any deeper into that, just as an introduction to understand the concept that numbers are important. So the number 8 in Judaism has a very special meaning. Let me explain. So for that, I'm going to the next slide. Listen to this. The number 7, so in other words, before we talk about the number 8, we have to talk about the number 7. The number 7 represents the cycle of creation. How so? Well, the number 8 represents the circumference which lies beyond the perimeter of time and space. Let me explain this. I should have brought a picture for you. You can make this experiment at home. All what you need is 7 circles of the same size. You can use 7 coins or 7 cups or glasses. Put them all together and you will see that they form a perfect cycle. You will have 1 in the middle and 6 around. Doesn't matter the size, but if each one of the circles is the same size, that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get 1 in the middle, 6 around. Okay? And that's why we call the circumference. But you have to imagine it, you have to picture it in order to understand why this word is used. Okay? But then that is the symbol of the cycle. And in other words, also the symbol of nature. But what is outside that, then is something that is outside or above nature. Another word, what is the word we use? Supernatural. Supernatural means over or outside nature. Okay? So, this is why the divine presence came to dwell in the Israelite camp on the 8th day. In other words, the tabernacle was inaugurated and symbolically God came to dwell there on the 8th day because the number 8 represent something that is above nature, above space, above time. And that is the concept of the divine, the concept of God. That's why, as I say, it's not a coincidence that everything happens on the 8th day. So this is also alluded to in the saying of our sages in the Talmud. It says that the lyre of the Moshiach and Messiah has 8 strings. You see, an allegory to the number 8 as something that is supernatural. But it's important for us to know this. So then when you start looking around in tradition, things that involve the number 8, then you will realize that they are all connected to some kind of miraculous nature. For example, Hanukkah. Or do you think it's a coincidence that Hanukkah, that the miracle above nature of Hanukkah happens for 8 days? It's not a coincidence. It's a special number. The same thing is, when do we have the circumcision for the babies? On the 8th day. Another connection to the supernatural or above space, above time, above nature of the act of circumcision. And this is one of the big problems, and I want to, sorry if I go off topic here about circumcision. The problem is we keep analyzing if circumcision is good or bad from a physical point of view. But then when you realize that the circumcision, it was set up for the 8th day because it's something that is above the physical world, then you realize that perhaps we are approaching this from the wrong perspective. It's not about physical benefit, but it's about spiritual benefit in something that it cannot be measured because it's outside space and time. And we don't have ways. It's impossible. We don't have ways to measure that. Because the concept of measurement is useless outside nature. That's all what I wanted to say. Let's see if I have anything else here in the chat. What is the numerical value of the word Todah? Well, I don't know. You need a calculator for that. I'm not good at that. I always do it with a chart in front of me with the letters and the numbers, and then I do it together. Yeah. Okay, so let's dig a little deeper into this concept of the numbers. Okay, this is another interesting thing. Follow me, please. In Kabbalistic teachings, the number 7 symbolizes perfection. Perfection that is achievable via natural means, while 8 symbolizes that which is beyond nature and its inherently limited perfection. Okay, but again, number 7 is everywhere. Everywhere. It's in the text. Let's keep reading. God created the world and its natural order in 7 days. Between the holiday of Passover and Shavuot, we count 7 weeks. During these weeks, we work on perfecting our 7 emotions. That's what the counting of the Omer is. We talked about that last time. Love, fear, compassion, ambition, humility, bonding, and receptiveness. 1 emotion per week. At the conclusion of the 7 weeks, we have sufficiently perfected ourselves to be worthy of receiving the Torah on Shavuot. Completed person has control over all 7 emotions. But see, again, we finish the cycle of 7, and the day after we receive the Torah, which is also the eighth day, or the concept of the 8, or the concept of what comes after the 7. Next, the Holy Temple's menorah, which served to illuminate the natural world with the holy glow of spirituality, had 7 branches. Because it represents the light we bring into nature. So number 7. There are 7 colors of the rainbow and 7 musical notes. This is amazing. This is also amazing to understand that why 7 colors in the rainbow. yeah, of course, because it's a coincidence, but we believe that there is that the God who created the world and the colors made this happen this way. When something has 7 parts, it symbolizes that it has reached its state of completion. 7 notes of diatonic scale makes one complete octave, etc. There's more for this text. 8, on the other hand, is symbolic of an entity that is one step above the natural order, higher than nature and its limitation. That's why Hanukkah is 8 days long. The greatly outnumbered Maccabees' resolve to battle the Greeks wasn't logical or natural. They drew on reservoirs of faith and courage that are not part of normative human nature. They therefore merited a miracle higher than nature, a miracle that lasted 8 days. To commemorate this, we light on Hanukkah an 8-branched menorah. In a similar vein, we circumcise our children when they are 8-day-old babies, because the Brit Milah, circumcision, symbolizes our nation's supernatural and logic-defying covenant with God. What about that? Any comments? The chat is very quiet. I want to know what you think about all this. I will give you a second to digest all that. Okay. Wow, says Shelly Chachino. Okay. Let's continue. With another text, this is from the Talmud. 8th son, King David. Yeah, but you see, if you keep digging, if you keep looking, you're going to find many things like this. Many things like this. Again, every number has its purpose, and Kabbalah dedicates lots of time to study different numbers. I can't. Let me give you a few more examples on the importance of the numbers in Judaism. Number 1, well, we all know what number 1 is. Number 1 represents God. Number 2 represents the world itself, but the world in its pure state. So if you see, when the beginning of the Torah said Bereshit bara Elohim, the word Bereshit in the beginning, the first letter is Bet, which is number 2. It's a reminder that the signature of this world is duality. Before the world was created, all what existed was the one, the pure one. Nothing else, nothing outside the one. Once the world was created, the first act of creation was actually the 2. Because then everything that was created came in pairs. Light and darkness, day and night, waters above, waters below, and so forth. So the number 2. But that is the world that God created. And then eventually that world is an interaction between the 2. So we have the number 4, which represents, it's the number that represents the material world. Number 4. Because it's the 2 interacting with the 2. But Kabbalah will say that actually it's not really the 2. The 4 is the 3, because whenever we have the number 3, it already includes the 4. The number 3 already includes the 4. And they will bring different examples of this, on how, for example, if you follow the order of creation, they put 3 columns. So you have day 1, day 2, and then always day 3. There is 2 things that are created on day 3. So day 3 already is a double, so it includes the number 4, and then it starts again. 1, 2, and 3, and again includes the double. Then when we have our patriarchs, for example, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob is the 3rd, but he's a twin. It's a twin brother. So the 3 already includes the 4. And then we have 3 patriarchs, but 4 matriarchs. Again, it's the 3 that already brings the 4. And I don't want to continue there outside. So yeah, but it's fascinating to study the numbers. And one more thing, then the number 5 symbolizes the child, because if 3 is the patriarchs and 4 is the matriarchs, when you have male, female, the next one is the child. So the 5 represents the child and so forth. It's quite a fascinating. I studied about that many years ago, and I really like it. Okay, so let's go back to the Parsha, to the day where the tabernacle was dedicated. And the Talmud says about that day was as joyous to God as the day on which heaven and earth were created. And this is because heaven and earth representing in this context 2 different aspects. Heaven representing the spiritual and earth representing the physical. When you are talking about heaven and earth together, it's talking about the balance in between the spiritual and the physical. And one of the ideas, or the ideal, of the tabernacle and later on the temple, was to bring back that connection between heaven and earth, between God and humanity, between spirit and body, so forth. Okay, that's why it says that day was joyous to God as the day on which heaven and earth were created, because of what symbolizes, for what people perceived of that place. And I don't believe that this is something literal, that God actually literally was there, but it's what people remembered all of a sudden. For some reason, they forgot about that. They forgot about the concept that we are connected to God, and the temple served that purpose, to connect us with the divine. You see, Hashem's, that's, by the way, for those of you who don't know, Hashem is one of the names of God that we use in Judaism. Hashem's purpose in creating the world was so that he could reside amongst his creations. And before Adam's sin, Hashem did just that. However, when Adam sinned, he drove Hashem to ascend to the lowest of the 7 heavens. You see number 7 here again. And now that you know what to look for, you're going to start getting all these things. When Cain sinned, Hashem ascended higher still. And so on, due to the sins of the generation of Enosh, the generation of the flood, the generation of the Tower of Babel, the Sodomites, and the Egyptians. In all, Hashem ascended to the 7th heaven. The Mishkan, the tabernacle, was built so that Hashem could again reside amongst men. As the Torah states, what is shoot? This is probably Shemot. Nothing happened here. They will build me a Mishkan so that I may reside among them. Thus, the day of which the Mishkan tabernacle was dedicated was as joyous for Hashem as the day on which Hashem created the world. Beautiful concept. Beautiful concept. But I believe that now we got it. I think we got the message. That's why sometimes the synagogue serves the same purpose. It's a reminder that we need both aspects of our life, heaven and earth, and what they mean and what they imply in our lives. We need both. We need both. Yeah. Any comments? Because after that, if no comments, I want to move to another verse of this parsha, because there is something else that happens, something huge that happened in this parsha, and I wanted to talk a little bit about that before we run out of time, because one of the things that sometimes happens, right, that we run out of time, and many times I don't have time to share with you every single slide that I prepare. The next episode that I wanted to explore with you is what happened with Nadav and Avihu. There were two of the sons of Aaron that died, when the temple was, the Mishkan was inaugurated, and they did something wrong, it looks, and they were killed miraculously by some kind of fire that came from the altar. So let's introduce the story, and then let's try to analyze what happened. It says, "But Nadab and Abihu, sons of Aaron, each took his censer, put fire in it, laid incense on it, and offered an authorized fire before Adonai," something he had not ordered them to do. "At this, fire came forth from the presence of Adonai and consumed them, so that they died in the presence of Adonai. Moses said to Aaron, 'This is what Adonai said: through those who are near me, I will be consecrated, and before all the people, I will be glorified.' And Aaron kept silent." Very powerful. Very powerful. So yeah, here I'm looking at the translations. It's they offer an unauthorized fire. The Hebrew is esh zara. I don't know if you ever heard this word before, zara. Like when we are talking about worshiping idols, for example, we call it avodah zara. So it's a very powerful word used here, and that's where you will see that many different commentators, they take different approaches, and they understand the word zara or esh zara in different ways. Yes, some will say they offer almost like some kind of pagan offering, and that's a no-no. So there was some kind of punishment for what they did. But then when you look at the bottom, what Moses said to Aaron, it's almost like it doesn't fit with that narrative. What does it mean that God will be consecrated by those who are near to him? It's just, and they glorified it, and they just did some kind of pagan ritual. Doesn't make any sense. So they try to take a different approach. Different commentators have said will take different approach. First, let's bring Rashi, and let's see what he has to say about what was the problem with Aaron's sons. Rashi will say they died because they entered the sanctuary intoxicated by wine. It's a very interesting approach, in the sense that everything they did was great. Everything was perfect. They really worked hard to present everything in the right way, but they were driving under the influence, and they didn't realize that it's a dangerous thing to be in front of this fire and the altar and the presence of God, and because of this accident, they die. So it's almost like Rashi said, this was an accident, even though it was negligence, but still it was an accident. So that's why Moses will say, no, they died consecrating the name of God. That was the way Moses tried to comfort his brother. So don't cry. God took them under his arms, under his wings right away, because they died consecrating the name of God. Even though we still had the narrative that I said, but it was preventable. And from there, in other words, from there we learn, and then the Torah will say it eventually, very close to this episode, that the priests will have to be careful not to be drunk or not to drink before they offer a sacrifice. So maybe the two events are connected, and the warning is a consequence of whatever happened to Nadab and Abihu, even though the Torah does not say so explicitly. But there is a prohibition in the Torah about drinking before presenting an offering. It's not that the Kohanim were not allowed to drink, but not before the service. Okay? Which is very progressive in the sense that to say you cannot be intoxicated before you do something dangerous. It's something that it's been there for thousands of years in the Torah, and it still looks like we haven't got it, because we still have accidents of people who will be either driving or operating machinery while they are under the influence of alcohol or drugs, and then we all know the consequences of that. They are tragic events even in the Jewish community, and it's awful. It's awful. But the Torah already warned us to stay away from that kind of lifestyle. And that might be one of the reasons of what happened there. And the fact that Aaron kept silent is almost like he realized that, thank you, Moses, for trying to comfort me, but I realized that my son, they messed it up. I wish that maybe he thought, I wish I could have known before that they were drunk. I don't know. We don't know. But Aaron kept silent. Maybe that, I don't know, was he guilty? I wish we could know more about that. You see, sometimes that's happened with the Torah. We know so much about certain things that we don't care about. We don't know anything about other things that we would love to know. What happened with Moses' family, for example? What was the dynamic with his wife? What was his relationship with his own sons that they're barely mentioned in the Torah, and so many other things? How was the relationship between Aaron and his sons? Did Aaron know that his sons like to drink? I don't know. The Torah doesn't say so. The Torah doesn't say it. So, any comment? Now, there is another commentary that kind of followed the same argument, that they had some alcohol before, but not to the point to make them drunk. That they just a little bit before. Listen to this one and tell me what you think about this next text. They said, Nadav and Abihu were not drunk. Not at all. They have imbibed some alcohol. They did this because a small amount of alcohol can enhance a person's feeling, and they wanted to enhance their closeness to Hashem on this holy day of the dedication of the Mishkan. They erred, however, for a Kohen, a priest who serves in the Mishkan before God, should not enhance his experience with outside influences. Rather, his spiritual high and his closeness to Hashem should come from the divine service itself. This is what the verse means when it says that they brought the incense with an alien fire that he had not commanded them. The Kohen should be motivated by Hashem's command and nothing else. This is a very interesting approach, because it takes a different reading of the verse. So it's not that they actually brought a physical alien fire, an unauthorized physical fire, but the fire that is talking about here is an internal fire that was not authorized. It was zara, that it was almost like a pagan sacrifice. It's not something that we do. We don't need to enhance or to help ourselves to feel more God by drinking alcohol or smoking something before having a spiritual experience. Far from there. We have to learn to enjoy of the spiritual experience by the experience itself. And I mentioned this because I believe every religion at one point, maybe they have this kind of approach or experiments. And there are groups within Judaism, for sure, that they tried. And I don't want to give any names, but there is a rabbi who used to be in Winnipeg many years ago, who experimented with that, with different drugs to enhance the spiritual experience. But it seems to, that approach seems to contradict this approach that was brought by Rabbi Yehuda Arya Leib Alter, who he will say, we should aim for having a spiritual experience without any kind of enhancement, and artificial enhancements. We should learn to find God with whatever we already have. We are equipped. We were created in a way that we can experience God without any external help. So I personally like this approach very much, to find God in a simple way sometimes. In a simple way. Any comments? Again, the chat is very quiet. No one. Okay. Okay, so let's bring another approach. So far we had they were drunk approach. Number 2 was they try to help or enhance the experience approach. Number 3, the third approach, is going to take a more literal meaning of that esh zara. It's like it was. Hi, Andrea. Okay, paying attention. Very good. Thank you. So, third approach. The Torah emphasis on the phrase that he had not commanded them. The key to any mitzvah is the fact that it is God's command. Even if a person doesn't know the reason for the mitzvah, the main thing is to do Hashem's will. This is the meaning of the verse from the Song of Solomon, chapter 1, verse 2. For your friendship is dearer than wine. Closeness to Hashem is achieved primarily by obeying his command, not by appreciating the sweet taste, the wine of the mitzvot. Indeed, this is why we recite a blessing before performing a mitzvah, stating that he has sanctified us through his commandments, that has commanded us to perform this mitzvah. In other words, what he's saying here, the reason we do the mitzvah is not because not because the pleasure that we may or may not feel about that mitzvah, because what is about something that it doesn't really bring you any kind of pleasure, right? So that means that you don't have to do it? Well, no, you still have to do it. But if you are going to base your observance on how much pleasure you receive from a mitzvah, chances are that you're going to stop observing 90% of the mitzvot. And then you think, oh wow, that's exactly what happened in these days. Because people seem to observe only the mitzvahs that either make sense or bring them some kind of pleasure or satisfaction. So, in other words, it's what Rabbi Yitzchak Meir Alter now is saying is that the sons of Aaron had to bring this offering to the altar, and they really they didn't like the way it was commanded. I don't know what they didn't like, so they decided to do something different in a way that they will enjoy it more. And it was almost like they were made an example of it, of this kind of disobeying the will of God, or try to outthink or outsmart God in that kind of sense. So this is, as I said, it's a third approach of what was wrong about this. And then Moses said, yes, anyway, they were glorifying the name of God, but Aaron kept silent because he said, yeah, I know, but that was not what God asked him to do. So he couldn't say anything about it. Jerome Fomin said, also transform a physical act to spiritual act. Yeah, it's great if we can achieve that, but said, yeah, that's the goal. Okay. Now, it's also interesting, another thing that I want to mention about this, and I don't want to spend too much time about it, but it nevertheless is interesting, the way the Torah described what happened after they died. It said, subsequently, it says that Moses instructed Mishael and Elzaphan by saying, carry your brothers from before the sanctuary. And they carried them out in their robes. God sent forth 2 threads of fire into each one's nostrils and consumed their souls without touching their flesh and without touching their clothes. Because it's very interesting. It doesn't make, if you read the story and if you try to analyze it like a detective, you will say, whoa, hold on a minute. We just said that there was a fire that came from the altar and killed these 2 guys. And then how is it possible that the people who took it out of the place were able to grab their robes. The robes should be consumed by the fire as well, because they were made of linen. So how is that possible? It's an excellent question. So, priestly robes, shrouds, whatever it is. We're talking about some kind of shmate, something made with fabric that they were wearing. But if it was real that it was a fire that came from the altar and consumed them, how is it possible that the clothes were intact? That's why the Midrash would say what happened is it was a thread of fire that came into their nostrils and consumed their soul. It's almost like consumed the inside of the body but nothing else. They didn't touch their clothes, which is impossible for us to imagine unless that you start speculating that it was maybe like an electric shock or something like that, and they would say, whoa, how is it possible? Electricity wasn't invented, but it wasn't discovered back then. It's a mystery. It's a mystery, and we don't have an explanation on how a fire can actually consume and kill these two individuals without burning their robes. We don't know. But I just wanted to mention it because it's a mystery that we have from this portion. And the other thing that I wanted to talk about is how Aaron kept silent, because this is something very important and it's worth to explore. Why did he kept silent? Why didn't he say anything? He just accepted whatever happened to him. No criticisms, no, God, why did you do that? Come on, I don't know, he could be very angry. Come on, one mistake and you take them from here? You take them from me? No, Aaron kept silent. But it's interesting. I wanted to bring to you what Rabbi Nachman of Breslov says about this. He says, in youth, one learns to talk. In maturity, one learns to be silent. This is a man's problem, that he learns to talk before he learns to be silent. I think this is very deep, in the sense that perhaps Aaron didn't know what to say, didn't know what to think. And it's almost like we're saying, you know what? If you don't know what to say, don't say anything. Because sometimes we are used to say something for the sake of saying, or to talk for the sake of talking. And you will see, Pirkei Avot will say, and there's a beautiful passage in Pirkei Avot, that it says there is nothing more precious than silence. Nothing. It's, this rabbi would say that he was among rabbis all the time, among sages all his life, and the main thing he learned is the value of silence. Why? Because you don't have to talk all the time. You only have to talk if you have something to say. And if Aaron didn't know what to say, the fact that he kept silent is a praise that the Torah brings to Aaron. Maybe he will say something later when he can organize his thoughts. But the fact that at the time that this happened and he was confused, he didn't say anything because just for the sake of saying, it was a sign of maturity. Yeah, Aaron was only human. He was traumatized and unable to react. Yeah, but we know many people that they are traumatized and they make a mess. They make the situation even worse. At least, and I'm pretty sure he was traumatized, but at least he was able to keep his cool and not make the situation worse than it was already there. And again, and the other thing that we learn from here is the attempt of Moses to bring comfort to his brother, to help him somehow to find peace, which is not easy. And we learn from there a concept that is called Nichum Avelim, which is to comfort the bereaved, the mourners, which is something that we're supposed to do, to be able to comfort the bereaved. And it's not easy, and there are many rules in Halakha, in Jewish law, on how we do it. And again, it will say, don't try to do it right away. even though Moses tried to do it right away. But it's important to help other people the way Moses tried to help his brother. Okay? And this is what I wanted to bring to you. And I wanted to close with this text also because, again, I wanted to connect it with Yom HaShoah, that we feel the same way. We have these two sons of Aaron who died bringing an offering. And we don't understand why. We don't really know why. But then I said, what can we say? When we look at the Holocaust and the Shoah, and we try to call, we say that they died sanctifying the name of God, which is pretty much with what Moses is saying to Aaron. They died sanctifying the name of God. Isn't that exactly what we say about the people who died during the Shoah? The sanctification of the name of God. But nevertheless, we are speechless. Yeah, we can try to rationalize and to talk about it, but I don't know how much we can say because we really don't understand it. We really don't. Yeah, that's all what I had to say. I don't know if you have any comment, but if not, I would like to thank you so much for coming, for tuning in today, and remember, as always, subscribe and hit the bell so you will be notified every time we go live or every time we upload something to our channel. It's very important to stay in contact. You need to subscribe to our channel. Give us the thumbs up to this video. I hope you know how to do that in YouTube or Facebook. And God willing, we are going to see each other again tonight at 7 p.m. We have the Yom HaShoah remembrance at the Shari Zedek. So hope to see you all there. Again, it's a partnership between the Shari Zedek and the Jewish Heritage Center. So I hope to see you all there. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. Stay safe. See you soon.